Welcome to Too Real for TV, Season 1, Episode 11. All right, let's get right into it. We're going to be tackling something incredibly heavy today, but it's so important to talk about. We're looking at what happens when trauma isn't just one single terrible event. What happens when it's a pileup, a collision of grief, assault, and betrayal all happening at once? It's about trying to find your way through a situation that feels absolutely impossible, when your entire world just completely shatters. And hey, before we go any further, if this is the kind of deep dive you're here for, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way you won't miss a single thing we cover.
I feel dirty and broken. We're starting with this, with these 5 simple but devastating words from a survivor. Because before we dive into the psychology, the definitions, and the paths to healing, we have to ground this in reality. This isn't just a topic for an explainer. This is a person's life. This feeling, this is the raw, unfiltered core of what compounded trauma does to a person's soul. It's a feeling of being fundamentally damaged, and it's where our story begins today.
And that quote really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Trauma is almost never this neat, tidy, single event that you can put in a box and deal with. Real life is messy, it's chaotic, and more often than not, one crisis comes crashing right into another, and then another. It creates these layers of pain that feel completely and totally insurmountable. It's like being caught in an avalanche. It's not just one big rock that hits you, it's the crushing weight of everything all at once. You're not just processing one event. You're trying to untangle this impossible web of grief and shock and violation.
So to really truly understand how these layers build on top of each other and how they interact, we're going to follow one person's story. This isn't a hypothetical. This is a real account of what this looks like. It's a story that begins with a profound personal loss and is then just completely shattered by an unthinkable act of betrayal. A betrayal from the very person who is supposed to be a source of safety and comfort in a time of grief.
The thing that is just so staggering here is the speed, the sheer velocity of the trauma. Let's walk through this. First, you have the complex, swirling emotions of an unexpected pregnancy. The shock, maybe some fear, but also the beginnings of hope and planning for a new future. Then, just as you're wrapping your head around that, it's ripped away. A devastating miscarriage. A deep, silent grief that she hadn't even had the chance to share with most people yet. And it's in that exact moment, in that space of profound vulnerability and sorrow, that the unthinkable happens. She was assaulted, not by a stranger, but by her brother-in-law, the person who was there supposedly to offer support. Each of these events, on its own, is deeply traumatic. But together, it's not addition, it's multiplication. It's a perfect storm of pain that leaves a person utterly lost at sea.
So, when this survivor describes feeling haunted, or broken, or physically sickened by reminders of what happened, those aren't just feelings. They aren't just emotional responses. They are recognized, documented, psychological and physiological symptoms of trauma. So right now, we're going to make a shift. We're going from the personal story to the science behind why the human body and mind react in these very specific ways when faced with the unbearable.
And that brings us to this term we hear a lot. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Now, let's be really clear about something. PTSD is not a character flaw. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a completely understandable biological and psychological response to an abnormal, terrifying situation. Your brain's alarm system has been shattered, and it's now stuck in the on position. It's your brain's desperate attempt to keep you alive, to survive the unsurvivable. It's a wound, not a weakness. And right here, you can see the textbook definition of PTSD playing out in the survivor's own words. It's heartbreakingly clear. The nightmares, that's the brain re-experiencing the event, trying and failing to process it. Avoiding the kitchen, that's a classic avoidance symptom. The brain says that place is dangerous, so it makes your world smaller and smaller to keep you safe. And the physical reactions? Throwing up at the sight of groceries he bought, that's a hyper-arousal reaction. It's proof that the body keeps the score. Her body remembers the trauma even when her conscious mind wants to forget. These are not random feelings. They are direct, documented symptoms of a mind and body in crisis.
This is so important to understand. Even before the assault, the survivor was already in a high-risk category for developing PTSD. Research from PTSD UK shows that up to 29%, that's nearly 1 in 3 women who experience a miscarriage, go on to develop post-traumatic stress disorder. Let that sink in. This isn't just sadness, it's a significant traumatic event, a grief that our society so often minimizes or expects people to just get over. So she was already dealing with a serious, though often invisible trauma.
And PTSD rarely travels alone. It usually brings some unwelcome friends along with it.
As the Pennsylvania Psychiatric Institute notes, trauma often comes with these co-occurring conditions. So it's not just the flashbacks or the nightmares, it's the crushing weight of depression on top of that. It's the constant, relentless hum of anxiety in the background of every single moment. And it's that deep, insidious erosion of your own self-worth. You start to believe those words, dirty, broken. You start to wonder if it was your fault. It's a vicious, devastating cycle.
Okay, so this leads to what is, for so many survivors, the most agonizing part of the entire aftermath, especially when the abuser isn't a stranger, but a member of the family. The survivor is now faced with this impossible, terrible choice. Do I speak my truth and risk detonating my entire family structure, or do I carry this poison and suffer in silence? This is where things get so complicated, so messy, and so too real for TV.
And this question, taken directly from the survivor's own account, it just gets right to the bone of the dilemma, doesn't it? It's not just about her story. It's about the blast radius. It's about the devastation it could cause to her husband, who was already grieving one loss and would now be faced with the betrayal of his own brother. It's about a mother and a sister who have loved and trusted this man their whole lives. The fear of not being believed, or maybe even worse, the fear of becoming the person who breaks the family apart. It is an immense and paralyzing weight.
You're essentially trapped in this impossible choice. Look at the two sides here. On one side, you have these deeply personal, completely valid fears. What if they choose him over me? What if I become the villain in this story? But on the other side, silence has its own profound risks. Silence lets the abuser control the entire narrative. Silence isolates you, making you feel utterly alone with your trauma, which only makes you worse. It stands in the way of any real healing or justice. And this is terrifying, it leaves the door wide open for him to do it again, maybe to someone else. There is no easy path here. There's no right answer.
So, given this impossible situation, given this mountain of pain, where does healing even begin? How do you move forward when you can barely stand? This next section is all about that. We're shifting from defining the pain to exploring the practical, evidence-based steps a survivor can actually take to start reclaiming their life, their safety, and their own story.
And this is it. This is the question on every survivor's mind. The sheer weight of everything, the grief, the trauma, the family dynamics. It is completely and utterly paralyzing. It feels like you're standing at the bottom of Mount Everest in your slippers. You can't even imagine the first step. But here's the good news. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just have to take the first step. There are defined, proven starting points.
For many, the most crucial first step is reaching out for professional help. And we need to be really clear about what this means. Going to therapy is not about admitting you're broken and need to be fixed. It's about partnering with a trained professional who has a map and the right tools for this specific, incredibly difficult terrain. You wouldn't try to perform surgery on yourself, you'd go to a surgeon. A trauma-informed therapist is a specialist for healing these kinds of wounds. What's so empowering about a method like trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, or TFCBT, is that it's a structured plan. This isn't just aimless talking. It's a clear three-phase process. First, stabilization. You can't do the deep work if you're in a constant state of crisis. This phase is all about building a toolkit of coping skills, grounding techniques, ways to manage flashbacks so you can feel safe in your own body again. Second, trauma processing. This is the heavy lifting, but it's done in a completely safe and guided environment. The goal is to carefully revisit the memory and refile it in your brain, taking away its emotional power so it's a memory of something that happened, not something that is happening. And finally, integration. This is about taking all those new skills and weaving them back into your daily life, creating a plan for your future and your safety. It's a real concrete plan of action.
Healing also requires a support system. But what do you do when your family is the source of the trauma? This quote from Take Root Therapy introduces such a powerful and vital concept, the chosen family. It's the radical idea that you can build your own network, your own tribe, of people who offer the unconditional love, support, and safety that your biological family could not. These are the people who earn a place in your life. It's about connection, not obligation. So, beyond therapy and building your own support system, there are external systems designed to help. This final section is about understanding the resources and the legal rights that are available to survivors. Knowledge is power, and knowing your options can be the first step toward taking that power back. The most important thing to remember here is that you have options, and you are in control. Think of this as a menu, not a checklist. You decide what's right for you. The first step can be something as simple as making an anonymous, confidential call to a hotline like RAIN just to talk and get information. From there, you can decide what comes next. Maybe it's therapy. Maybe it's considering a report to the police. Maybe it's looking into legal protection. You are in the driver's seat of your own recovery.
And let's just pause on this point because it is absolutely critical. Reporting to law enforcement is an option. It is an avenue for justice. But it is not an obligation. No one should ever pressure a survivor into taking this step. Only the survivor knows what feels right, what feels safe, and what they're capable of handling. The power to decide whether or not to engage with the criminal justice system rests solely with them, period.
Now, one specific legal tool that's incredibly relevant in a situation like this is a domestic violence restraining order, or a DVRO. It's designed for exactly these kinds of cases, when the abuser isn't a stranger, but someone you have a close relationship with, like a family member. It's a civil court order, which means it's separate from any criminal charges. Its entire focus is on one thing, the survivor's safety. And a DVRO has real teeth. It gives you tangible legal protection. It can order the abuser to stay a certain distance away from your home, your job, your car. If you live together, it can order them to move out. It can prevent any form of contact, no calls, no texts, no emails, no showing up unannounced. It creates a powerful, legally enforceable boundary. And that protection can last for up to 5 years. That's 5 years of space, 5 years to breathe, 5 years to heal without looking over your shoulder.
Ultimately, whether it's through setting emotional boundaries, seeking a restraining order, or cutting contact completely, this quote frames the decision perfectly. Read it again. This isn't an act of betrayal against your family. It's an act of profound self-love and self-preservation. It is about choosing your own well-being, your own sanity, your own safety. It's choosing yourself. And really, that's what this all comes down to. Agency, power, control. Trauma takes all of that away from you. The entire process of healing is about reclaiming it, bit by bit, choice by choice. It isn't about erasing what happened. It's about refusing to let it define the rest of your life. It's about reclaiming the power to write your next chapter. So we'll leave you with this question to reflect on. No matter how small, what is one step, phone call, looking up a website, writing in a journal, or even just allowing yourself a moment of peace? What is one small step you can take today to reclaim your own story? Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Too Real for TV. If this was helpful, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.